You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Marvel Comics Podcast. This is episode number 55, Legacy 555. And just as a bit of breaking news, well, first I'll say that I'm always here with my man, Matt. What up, Matt?
What up, Jim? Happy
now
to be
I'll
here.
get to the breaking news. In Marvel's Infinite Wisdom, they have dropped us from the review copy list, so we will no longer be getting review copies. That's, partly due to Sus Gabe tweeting out things. And the thing is, he ended up tweeting out a couple things that really is what might have started the ball rolling. I kind of have a theory about all this, but the thing that brought us down was Dazzler. If you're going to end up being taken down by anything, it can't be Dazzler. That piece of Gabe ended up, he ended up tweeting out, for the most part, what they seemed to have a problem with was that stupid lyrics sheet that was at the end of Dazzler, Jason Liu's awful heavy-headed lyric sheet. And I wondered, were they worried the spoiler was that he can't write a song and it was bullshit? Is that the spoiler? Maybe. Gabe should have had, spoiler alert, this song sucks, is what he should have put. But that seemed maybe to get the thing rolling. But at the point, they did reach out to me. I didn't see it. I don't really check that email much. But they said, hey, there's an embargo. You can't release things before. And it was a page from the book, whatnot. But it didn't feel like we lost the books then. The review copies. It might have been that set the ball rolling of maybe checking things out.
Looking into it a little bit.
And realizing, Gabe is not been given great, but may have even listened to this podcast. And the thing is, if they did, the real spoiler is their books really suck right now. Marvel is not at a good place. They're not putting out a lot of good books. There's always going to be some. And we even have one that we like tonight. But in the meantime, there is a lot of bullcrap. Now, also in the meantime, we usually don't review that stuff, so it could have even been worse. But I do think that maybe they looked into things to the point where they won't even return my emails, and it looks like we don't have review copies now.
Don't they tend to pull back the review copies in your experience when the books aren't that good?
Well, they end up, that's what happens. That's what happened with DC a couple times, and that's, they end up where no news is good news when it comes to reviews, because the idea of the reviews coming out on Wednesday, people heading to the shop, they would rather have no reviews. And some people actually talk about that, why wouldn't they want reviews? Well, of course, they don't want reviews when their books stink, because all the reviews will be dead, and then people won't end up going and getting the books. But
do they have to release every copy? Just do the ones they want people to review, 5 or 6 issues a week or something?
They ain't giving us nothing. So it's done. And,
thanks, Gabe.
In the meantime, Sus Gabe at it again, and that really throws our whole scheduling in a tizzy. I ended up actually telling people in our Slack and in our Patreon that we're just going to have to see how it goes, because me and you always would record on Monday night. We'd actually get the review copies and then right to the reviewing. And now we don't have that, so we have to wait Wednesday, see what's going on. And so maybe there'll be some books in the future that we wanted to review that we won't get to, or we may actually at points maybe have to skip a week or so. Whatever the case may be, we're going to try to do what we can. It's not again, that we review 20 books each week. We try to get the bigger books and do that. But back to the whole thing, I actually have been told by people, and I think it's kind of true, I think that reviews mainly don't hurt book sales. I think that they only can help. If you actually end up liking something, I think people are more apt to pick something up that they weren't going to pick up than if they're already having something on their pull list, dropping it, because, again, they'll know if they like a book or not. I think it's more the idea that if you end up, oh, my God, and I have it all the time. People end up telling me that me and you get them excited about a book, or we bring something up, or even the DC and the indie stuff. So I think it's a misplay by Marvel. And again, at points when this happens, I end up getting upset, but it's more like I get offended. And then I sit there, I'm like, I'm going to show them, but we're just going to do our regular thing. We don't fake the funk. And then in that, we're going to have a couple books here that I don't like. And it's full out honesty, nothing to do with review copies. Actually, if I should be mad at anybody, it's Gabe. Sus Gabe is who is, and we'll have a song at the end for Gabe. But in the meantime, we have 3 books we're going to talk about. And they are 2 Spider-Man books and then a Wolverine book, something that, we ended up liking the first issue, Wolverine Revenge. A lot of other people gave us crap about it. And then we also have Ultimate Spider-Man. That's everybody's darling, except maybe 2 people on this podcast. And
yeah, definitely.
The Amazing Spider-Man is what we're going to start with. And it's, petering off to an end. That's a bit of a pun. The Amazing Spider-Man, number 58. Written by Zeb Wells, pencils by John Romita Jr., maybe half pencils because some of this stuff seems very undone. And we talk about it a lot. Me and you are John Romita Jr. fans. I think that this script is being written and then shoved off to the deal. You said that there was a point where John Romita Jr. even mentioned there was a script that they ended up saying, just draw a big fight scene and then we'll deal with it.
I think that's what this issue and possibly next issue.
You can kind of tell that there's nothing to this. Inks by Scott Hanna, colors by Marcelo Menez, VC's Joe Caramagna, letters. And the last issue, I'll tell you, wasn't that much of anything. You ended up having Tombstone doing the switcheroony where they thought that he was reacting and trying to get Janice and Robbie, who were getting taken out of the city. In the meantime, they had set up a dupe that it was actually She-Hulk. Then you get Digger, who is, kind of getting the subway tracks and shooting the subway. And it was a mess. It was a complete mess. Then we get to this issue. This issue, legitimately, you could read in 2 minutes. There is nothing going on at all. And it just shows you that at the end of Zeb Wells' run, he was supposed to be off the book by now. They asked him to, stick around for a little, maybe get Joe Kelly, up to whatever. You got to have something, though. You can't have one of the biggest books in comics just be this much of a nothing book. This is a nothing book, and it's getting me mad already. You end up Janice, who ends up coming face to face with her dad, Tombstone, Lincoln, and he's going to shoot her right in the face. And she says, "You don't want to do this." He says, "Yes, I do." And he starts open firing. One of the things that Tombstone is not is a good shot. I mean, is he a stormtrooper or what?
19 shots I'm counting here.
19 shots from dead, point-blank range. You could tell me that he doesn't want to kill her, but then why even fire the shots? I mean, he is awful. He is the worst shot. He's shooting beds. He's shooting desks and lamps and doors. Not Janice, though. And she dives away, and she's like, "Oh, if you want that, well, I'm going to get my Beetle costume on." I'm like, really? Get out the window. Just you're not going to be able to defeat him by just fighting. And luckily for her, Spider-Man shows up because we go back to the scene of that nonsense subway car coming up through the street, and everybody's kind of gathering their thoughts. White Rabbit's like, "Oh my God, we got to get to Janice. Tombstone has to be there. She-Hulk wants to go. They will go with Spider-Man. He's already gone." And that's the kind of the play here is, where's Spider-Man? Oh, he's gone. When did that happen? Oh, well, I guess we'll never know. But Janice ends up having her gadget. I love the idea, too. She ends up having like a flamethrower gadget type thing that hits the hand and the gun out of Tombstone's hand. And then he goes, "I've got gadgets, too," and throws a grenade. I don't consider a grenade a gadget.
Like a flash grenade or something, EMP?
I don't consider that a gadget. I don't know why, but I don't. And so he ends up doing that, and she's yelling, I'm your daughter, you psycho beep, this and that." She's going to try to strangle him. He's going to choke her out, and he actually is watching the life leave her eyes.
I do like how he grabbed her arm and just choking her with the other arm.
And he slams her on the ground. He's choking her out. And then, thank God, what happens then is Spider-Man crashes through the window so hard that it skews up the vantage point and the whole art that seems really stretched at this point beyond what was actually drawn. It looks like you ended up getting a square deal and made it landscape.
It's the aspect ratio.
Right, the
weird.
Aspect ratio is completely off here, and I think that maybe they needed like an extra page, and let's stretch this one out because it's way off as he yells, "Get off her, stop it." These are the big, to-do of the script here. And we do think, again, that it's like the Marvel method, where you end up having John Romita Jr. draw this fight scene, sends it back to Zeb Wells, and Zeb Wells can't do anything. So he writes, "Get off, stop it," and nothing.
Wouldn't it have been better than just to have no dialogue then? Just
this
grunts
could have been
stuff?
like a silent issue. And
yeah,
maybe it would have been
more
better.
happy with that, I think.
Yeah, and in that, maybe don't even have Spider-Man show up, or maybe the gadget he has ends up making like a silent pocket. I don't know, but this deal of, hey, what are you going to do there, Spider-Man? Whatever it takes. Janice, go. Huh? He, who? And then they end up where at points you have Tombstone grab Janice's ankle. I didn't understand. I thought he was ripping something off, but he's picking off a shard of something to then hit Spidey and drop. I don't know. Janice falls out the window.
He grabs her foot, and then he tries to grab something else, and it breaks, I think, and then she flies
it looked
out.
like he was going to use that other bit for a weapon, but I thought
he was going to stab Spider-Man with it.
So did I. And then Spidey looks out. Janice is falling. She looks like she falls right on her head.
Head first. She's dead.
Head first, but yet somehow she hurt her shoulder. And yeah, she should be dead. Then Tombstone jumps out the window. He lands on this. They're running. And now the arc gets even worse because they run into another building. She goes past security. I love these security guys who just yell, hey, stop, and don't even move.
And this other guy in a business suit.
Oh, yeah, this guy in the business suit gets, like, yanked because he's like, hey, because she says, get out of my way. He's like, hey, get out of my way, bitch. And he gets just thrown. And it's great, too, because he gets thrown. And this is where I actually told you where I thought the art really started getting wonky. When this guy gets thrown and Spider-Man shows up, it's like the most non-defined Spider-Man ever. He says, go limp. He's like, hey, I can't help it. I'm excited. You end up where they're running through this business apartment building. I don't even know what it is. And Janice is running up through doors and windows and whatever. And Lincoln, he's chasing and he grabs her again. And so we now are almost done the issue where they were at her apartment, which again, the stupidest thing ever. Hey, we think that Tombstone is going to go after his daughter, Janice. So we're going to set up this big dupe. I mean, this really crazy scenario. But in the meantime, let Janice just stay at her apartment. Well, why didn't they move her to another apartment? That would have solved everything. That would have been it.
Yeah,
but you end up, remember, they said they had moles.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, freaking Tombstone then grabs Janice by the back of her hair. Spidey comes in to wrestle him away. And then Janice, with these gloves on that I wouldn't think would make these marks. I mean,
it would not. Those are like, like the Prowler has gloves like that. She doesn't.
Motocross gloves.
These are regular gloves.
Yeah, and she's like clawing into the point where she's like making these gouges.
He's permanently scarred.
Oh my God. And, that'll be great. But yeah, and he's yelling. He's bleeding all over the place. The blood seems ridiculous. And you end up where Tombstone then is like, trying to flail around. He's like, Janice, and then Spider-Man goes, nope.
That was me.
You got me. Ow.
He was beating Spider-Man back.
Yeah, he was beating Spider-Man. But if you're Spider-Man, don't say anything.
I know. There's no need for any dialogue.
Why are you saying anything? That make him think that he's hitting Janice, maybe. But and she's like, get off me. He's like, you're welcome. Oh my goodness. And yeah, he says to Janice again, get out of here. And then you end up having Spider-Man say to Tombstone, we need to talk. Tombstone just has blood just spurting everywhere. And he says, do you know what you're doing? You can't come back from this, Lonnie. No crap.
Who knows?
What is Tombstone? What is he? Tombstone, what is he, a hero?
Yeah, we're not redeeming him. He's over past that point.
Yeah. I mean, at the point of gang war, he caved in Janice's mask, and we thought she was dead. This isn't a new thing for him. Even at one point, she yells, I'm your daughter. And he goes, no, your state's evidence. I'm going to kill you. That's what he is. And says, I wish you didn't have to see me like this or whatever. She's seen you like this. But you end up where now Peter says, you know what you're doing? You can't come back from that. Do you hear me? And then just starts pretty much beating up a blind Tombstone. Then Tombstone gets upset. And then, let's even get even worse. At the very end, you want to get crazy. So now we're even playing Batman, 89. So you have this nonsense, and it looks like, they're crashing out the window. Let's get crazy.
I did think it was, I've never seen this before where they go, oh no, you want to get crazy? And then on the cover of the next issue, it says, let's get crazy.
And boy, that cover, I mean, most people, will people think those are webs, or will they realize it's like
that safety glass, I guess. I don't know.
It's bad. This issue sucks. There's nothing to it. We're coming to an end of a shit-ass run, and you can't even, you had a lot of things that you could have dealt with in these last bunch of issues. They asked you to stay. You have so many loose ends, and I'm talking about that jerk-off Paul. Paul should be underneath that window, and somehow Lonnie and Spider-Man splat on him.
Just land
they get
on
up, and then a safe falls on him, and then a grand piano.
And nobody even talks about it. No funeral for him or anything. It's just over.
Nobody even knows he's there.
Nope.
He's just squished underneath. People are upset more about the piano. So
you see Mary Jane smiling.
Yeah, really. He's like, oh, finally, free at last. You end up where you could have dealt with that. You could have dealt with a bunch of things. Obviously, people like the Tombstone stuff. But if you're going to deal with it, have a story. There's no story here. This is bullcrap, and the art is bad. It is unfinished because I think they're rushing because they didn't realize they were going to have to do it. But that's where, in my mind, that's where you show your worth. If you end up, hey, we need 5 more issues from you. We know that you weren't ready for it or whatever. Can you give it to us? You see this guy has nothing. Zeb Wells has nothing except a stupid haircut is what he has. That's what I think. I saw the picture of him again. He has a very slappable face. I'm not saying I'd slap it. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
He has a slappable face is what he has, and he thinks he's a funny guy, and then when you have to do actual action, he has nothing. Nothing at all. This is bullshit. What would you give it?
I just wanted to say I really like the cover to this issue. I think that
that looks good.
All the time was spent on that. I'd give it a 5.5.
I'm giving it a 3. And I think that the John Romita Jr. cover, which is pretty good, it's so nondescript. He probably had this already.
It's so generic.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's just like a poster kind of thing. This one's generic as hell, and then the next issue is not generic at all. Super specific.
And that looks like crap.
Whatever the art was, they just made it into a cover. I don't think it was actually supposed to be.
And by the way, too, we didn't talk about it, but last week, or last issue, 2 weeks ago, Nick Lowe, there was a letter in the letters section where a guy actually said, hey, why are you doing this bullshit? Basically called them out and said, you guys are doing bullcrap. Why aren't you giving us what we want? And by the way, Ultimate Spider-Man, which we'll be doing next, but they're giving us what we want. And there's millions of fans that you're, going against, whatnot. Nick Lowe, like a prick, ends up like, well, it's just you talking, not tons of, like a jerk. So he's a jerk, so I don't like that guy.
He's too positive about everything. There's nothing. Some of the stuff's not positive.
Face.
Yeah,
that's what he is. There you go. But
his voice is annoying too.
Crap. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Probably people are like, same with us, but who cares? That is that. That is it for that book. Now we'll go to the next one. I actually have a feeling that people are going to get upset with us now. Again, I am in a bad mood for all this stuff, but the bad mood just makes me not like bad things. Like this stuff stinks. But we're going to go to the next one, which is Ultimate Spider-Man. It's Ultimate Spider-Man number 9. It is written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Cicchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by VC's Corey Petit. And I don't like this. And I am actually on board with you a bit here. I didn't like the art that much either. And I know that you haven't been a fan of the art, but by the end of this issue, the art is definitely not saving what is just another boring script. We end up having Peter get a new suit that pretty much looks like the other, and they have to make jokes about Velcro. You do get the Iron Spider suit in the middle that's kind of cool, and you get this continuing deal of Harry being a little sus. They don't want to have any involvement with Stark Stane, so they're trying to do all this, and Doc Ock doing his thing, but there's not much to this. And most of the books that are going in this Ultimate Universe, they're just boring. And this is another one where, again, you have people say, I love this book because, again, even that letter I just referenced in the whole Amazing Spider-Man, this book is giving us what we want. We're getting the family. We're doing that. But are we? Are we? Because this has, a couple sections, but you're not getting anything.
You're getting Uncle Ben and J. Jonah, which is boring because they're two old, ancient guys doing a young, like a newspaper. Like, nobody would be reading this crap.
No, and even then, it's just Spider-Man stuff. It's just, and they're upset. And that's the whole play of this, is that they have Mary Jane running PR. Journalists. Yeah, they want to be serious journalists, but they need to sell papers, so they're caught between those two. Mary Jane, and basically what Jonathan Hickman seems to be doing is, hey, everybody, we're going to do like PR, we're going to do journalism 101 here, because you end up having J. Jonah and Uncle Ben, they're upset because the paper is a success, but they're not doing what they want it to do. They want it to be hard-hitting. But what hard-hitting are you doing? You haven't even opened the files that Robbie gave you. You don't even do it until this issue.
But you end up getting hammered. That's all they're doing.
They're getting hammered because they're like, hey, we're celebrating, but they're kind of, upset about it. They're kind of miserable about it.
Yeah.
Mary Jane comes in and is like, what up, bitches? What's happening? And they're like, oh, well, we're not really doing what we want. She's like, shut your mouth. It's a success. And really, basically, what she's doing is even an advertisement. The idea of you have to get the people in the door, then you can do your wowing other ways. But you have to get them in the door. So she says, you have this biggest thing going on. You're going to be bigger than the Bugle. There's so many people reading. Now you can do what you wanted to do. It's as if they have struggled for a hot afternoon. Like, they haven't had the paper that long. It's a huge success, but they're pissed off about it because they want to do their stories. Well, do your stories now. And that's what she says. She says, just do the stories. In the meantime, it's boring. It's not real engaging. This isn't what I thought we'd get from Uncle Ben or Mary Jane. Maybe J. Jonah, but even that. Have J. Jonah do that stupid, threats and menace freaking podcast. Now that's fun.
That was funny.
Have all these sort of, morning zoo stuff going, but basically it's just her giving us the 101 of you got to get people in the door. Then you can tell your, deep cut, deep dive things once you get the people already involved, which they have. And so it's just a reminder that they are going to do hard-hitting stories from the stuff they got from Robbie. The intriguing part about that is Wilson Fisk isn't going to have this happen. He's not just going to sit back idly. I think they're going to find out. Obviously, there's a mole. They'll find out it's Robbie, and he'll be killed. I thought that from the very beginning. We'll see how it plays out. But in the meantime, you don't even get the fun of Peter taking pictures. That's just mentioned by Mary Jane. Says, hey, Peter took some cool pictures. Yeah, we know. But it's like the sensationalist stuff that they don't want to do, which is the joke here is that J. Jonah's always into that, and now here he isn't. But in the meantime, you do end up having Peter and Harry get called in by Doc Ock, and the whole things are going crazy in this neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We end up where Doc Ock calls him, and he has new suits. Says that,
Great,
what?
We're talking about the suits again.
Yeah, and the suits again. We already did this, and the whole play
it's like the third or fourth issue about the suits.
If you are, and he says, I kind of dug into this deal. We have to get this tracking away from Stark Stain. Do you? I mean, Harry might want to because he kind of was dissed.
I mean, Iron Man seems like a good guy to me. Who cares?
Yeah,
if he's
they don't really
me?
know.
I only exist because of him anyway. He's the one who gave me the powers. The spider was stomped on, and somehow he saved it. So thank him.
In the meantime, I think that Tony then ends up like, why isn't this tracking anymore? That's going to make him come
he's
to him.
Be mad.
And then Peter even says he knows where I live. So what is it? So you end up where I think this is just to get Ock doing his thing. But
and also to separate the suit from Spidey so that it can go bad or whatever, too, probably.
Yeah, because at
Venom.
You don't even have, I thought you'd have the point where he takes off the suit and you see it walk away. High fives and start strutting, eating
that
pizza
creepy
or something.
Smile it does.
Yeah, so you end up where they end up. Doc Ock's like, "Hey, I made this," and it's like the Iron Spider suit, and he's like, "Yeah." And
it's
you look at it.
It's a stupid looking Iron Spider suit.
You look at it, and anybody who looks at this says, "But Spider-Man needs to be agile." And then they say it pages later, like this isn't going to work.
Like a
Doc Ock's all
suit or something.
Yeah. It's crazy. So he ends up like, I don't think so. Also, he ends up talking to his AI, and then the joke is Harry says, hey, he talks to himself all the time. Ha, ha, ha. Move on.
It's definitely Doc Ock suit, to your point.
I think that's what happens. This just gets repurposed into a Doc Ock deal. So you end up then where even in the Of the Mind AI, Peter and himself talking to each other, he's like, well, just, don't leave me here. Because at the one point you have Doc Ock say, hey, I'm going to put him in a Faraday cage. I'm going to work on him. He's like, no, don't leave me with that nonsense, Doc. All right, we'll take you home. And the suit even says, I'll be a great, home security device. This ain't going to work right. Peter's going to come home, and that suit is going to be in bed with Mary Jane, getting it on. And we'll say, call me Paul. And then everybody will lose their mind.
It's going to be doing homework with the kids. It's going to be banging Mary Jane.
Oh, yeah,
the whole
banging
thing.
Mary Jane. She's
taking
like,
over.
So much better than Peter. and then it's just going to be troubles. And he's like, why can't I win in any universe?
He's going to be throwing the football with the sun.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah. The only thing it won't do, it won't pay the bills or take out the trash. That's what. And Peter's such a cuck; he'll end up doing all that. So you end up where they end up at. The joke is that Peter's like, no, and then he gets a new suit, but we never see him like change or what happens to it. And it's barely a new suit. They say it's, hey, it's spandex. Oh man, when Mary Jane sees this, she's gonna go bonkers. I'm like,
it's what it should have been from the beginning.
Yeah, she'll be in bed with that other suit. So you end up where they're hanging, and then Peter gets more of a spidey sense. He ends up seemingly, getting it, say, oh my God, there's something dangerous coming. And it's the Black Cat. It's the Black Cat who shows up, and he ends up being able to disable the suit of Harry. The goblin suit kind of gets shut down. And through this whole thing, Harry's like, Daddy, please turn on, Daddy. And you end up where the Black Cat talks crap and is whipping Peter and things like that. And then Peter is able to take him down eventually. And then Black Cat says, oh, so I guess you're going to kill me. And he's like, I'm not doing that. I don't kill people. I'm the good guy. And then Black Cat's like, well, that's cool. I guess it's my lucky day. And when Peter is not paying attention because he goes back to Harry, he gets out of the webbing and legitimately looks like he's going to kill Peter with a lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And you end up having Harry, because Harry's looking over the shoulder of Peter, sees this, pushes Peter away, and blasts Black Cat, who then falls 10 stories down and splats down. There is no way he lives from this.
It's like blood all around.
And then the thing is, it comes off as a bit jokey of, hey, is he dead? I don't know. He's breathing a little. And then they come and get him on the ambulance. They put him in, and the whole play is like, oh, I wonder if he's going to live or die or whatnot. And then he ends up, finally, Peter's like, what the hell, Harry? Like, you're not supposed to do that. Harry says he was going to kill you. I'd do it again. I'll do it 10 times this Sunday. He was going to kill you, and that's how I reacted. Usually what we've seen is Harry is completely sus, and we would have seen that it wasn't going to be that. But it looks like he's telling the truth. I mean, you had Black Cat there with the lightsaber about to just slice Peter. And even with that, you can't say that he was going for anyone else, because even when he disabled Harry and the goblin suit, Black Cat says to Peter, I was going for you. Like, I want you. And this whole thing. And he talks too much crap and says, this is part of Fisk's deal. They're having this hunt. We know that Black Cat was the first to get to him. And even makes the joke of, they thought that this like EMP thing wasn't going to work, but I knew it would. But nothing really matters. It just feels like a lot of dull moments. And then you end up having, Peter, which would have been the cool thing of Peter saying, like, I'm not hanging with you if you're going to kill people. No. He just kind of looks at him and is like, okay. And the whole running joke with them is, hey, do you want to come to the Hamptons with me and Gwen for Christmas? Peter says, I can't. I have a family. Why don't you come and spend Christmas with us? And then at the end, when he's like, the hell with you, Harry, you can't kill people. And Harry's like, yeah, he would have killed you. I'll do it again. Oh, so are you going to come and spend Christmas with us? And they get a yuck. And then off they go. And I'm like, yeah.
Meanwhile, they're having this conversation on a roof without their masks off on. Again. It's just so dumb.
I keep mentioning the idea that Fisk says that he has cameras everywhere and things like that, and they're just taking masks off and doing all that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But next issue looks like it has Goblin with J. Jonah.
Yeah, the classic cover.
Up, and
That's the classic
again,
cover. But
what
just
is Harry doing?
If people love this comic so much, like, show them with the family doing stuff. It's always with Harry. Like, is that his like replacement MJ? Like, what's going on
there
here?
There you go. They're doing
Too
their
much.
Stuff, but I'd rather see
Get
a
Harry
little
out of
bit
here.
with the kids. I mean, Harry's the big point. But if he's going to go bad, make him go bad.
It's called Spider-Man. It's not called Ultimate Spider-Man and Harry Osborn. It's just too much.
It's just, again, we have months and months to get
and
to
I realize
when we're going to do things.
What I fundamentally do not like about this is I don't like a 35-year-old Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That hasn't gone through any of the trials and tribulations of like the younger version. So you see him making stupid faces in the pictures, and like he's acting like a kid, but he hasn't done anything.
I like that his big pose is to pull back and give like the what look.
Yeah, but
he does that a lot.
But shouldn't he be serious at like 35? If when he was 15, he got his powers, and he aged to 35.
I still think he's pretty serious. Half the time when he looks back, he's like disgusted.
It just doesn't work for me. Spider-Man needs to be a young guy that has evolved over time, not an old guy that just started.
Yeah, he has nothing. So again, people were like, oh, well, Harry gave him the responsibility talk, but what did it mean? And finally in this, actually, Harry says, hey, these guys are bad guys. Like, we got to kill them because they killed my dad and they killed Aunt May. And finally, somebody's mentioned Aunt May again. And Peter still just kind of brushes that off. He doesn't seem to really care that much about it. What I get from it is, while you do get those looks, I feel like this book is pretty cold and there's not much like real emotion there. You know, yeah, you have J. Jonah and Ben miserable because they're making a rag paper, but you don't really get it. And then when you have Harry, like even when Harry throws Black Cat over the deal, blast him, I kind of laughed. I really don't care. It's not like, oh my God, what are they going to do? And it's just nothing. But again, a lot of people love it. A lot of people, when they do love a book like this, I know from experience, they don't want to get it out of their grip. So they'll keep saying they love it until finally they just have to admit that it's not good. And this book hasn't been good for a couple issues. It is one of those books. It's just this ultimate stuff is boring. And I really do think that one of the biggest problems is the maker, that backstory. We're waiting for all that. It's just nothing. Not a good foundation. It's just nothing. And I'm done with it. We'll probably still review this, but I really don't care if we do or not. I don't care if I read it or not because I don't either, read it and I'm not that engaged. I just read it to read it, get it done. I keep thinking that every issue, and this one really was just like, yeah, we're getting suits again. We're doing the AI talk. We're having Ben and J. Jonah talk about, we want to do the hard-hitting stories. They finally do look into that file that Robbie gave them. It's been sitting around, and they just didn't even look at it. And Harry isn't that interesting either. So what would you give this? Yeah,
so generally, normally I'll give a couple of points more than you usually for the art or whatever if it inspires me. But it goes the opposite direction. It really bothers me. There's something just about it that it's like
I don't like the art of the normal, regular people.
Yeah,
the costume stuff looks okay, but when it's just faces, I don't like it.
Yeah, even the Spider-Man logo, I really don't like the little spider designs. Just that. And everything else together with what I said earlier and you're saying, I'd give it a 3. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 5. I'm giving it a 4.
I don't like it.
I can't even go to 5. I don't either. I'm bored with it. I'm bored and pretty much done. So I'll get people yelling about that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's just not that interesting anymore.
Ultimate X-Men. Holding it down.
When I saw May and Peter, they're swinging around, I'm like, this is what we've needed. But then
that was cool.
That's like the carrot, and now we're just stuck with the stupid donkey.
It's had some moments where we really liked it, and it could get back to that maybe, I guess. I mean, Hickman's perfectly capable of doing it.
And I've argued with other people about this too. Ultimate Black Panther, boring.
Yeah, it's
Ultimate's boring. Bad. And
worse than this.
The thing is,
bad.
Ultimate X-Men I like and people hate it. So that's the thing that's weird about it is whether you like whatever book or it's just a mess. This isn't as good as
nothing else new. They don't introduce any new Ultimate stuff. It's just kind of frozen a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until the maker comes out of his egg. Comes out of that dome, had the egg timer go off.
So by that time, you'll have a year of the DC stuff under their belt.
Dead of boredom. I'll just imagine that. It's like that's still like a year away.
Yeah.
And then what happens? What are we gonna have an event? And then what? If at the end of that they're like, "Oh man, we beat the maker." Now, the hell with it. Just screw all this stuff and get to that point.
It seems like they're just heading to just get it back to the 616, which we already have. We want something different.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll do some wacky stuff.
Give me wacky. I'd rather have that than the same crap.
I just want something engaging and fun and cool and exciting.
Literally anything you want to do, you can do. That's the whole point of it.
I guess he wants to bore me. That's what he's doing. So we'll go to the last book of the night. This is a book that me and you like the first issue more than most people that we talk to. And again, this issue is going to be just a fight scene. And if you say, oh, well, this week's Amazing Spider-Man was just a fight scene, this is done a little better. And this ends up looking better, though I'll still say it's not a perfect book, but it's Wolverine Revenge #2, another Hickman book. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, pencils by Greg Capullo. I think the pencils are a lot better in this one, too. I think they're really good. Inks by Tim Townsend, colors by FCO Placencia, letters by VC's Corey T. And throughout the first issue, it was just balls to the wall, people dying, nobody understanding, is this in continuity, out of continuity? I assume when an EMP shot off from a, dying or a dead Magneto gets the whole world out of, and I'm assuming that it's not quite the continuity.
Well, it's a good point because our friend Sus Gabe just just keeps thinking about, talking about. Is this in continuity? I can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't matter. I mean,
that's the big thing. It doesn't
it's a story.
matter.
It doesn't.
You know what matters? Tweeting out pages from Dazzler and getting the review copies taken from us.
Thanks
the
a
whole
lot.
play of this is like, this is what happens, and I'll admit it. I know that people, even you might have said it. When I'm doing the DC Comics podcast and I'm just trying to get through something, and I end up like, oh man, this is kind of neat. You have this. And then Eric starts going with this nonsense of, well, if we see this, then what does this mean? I'm like, who cares? Like, it's just an issue. It's just an issue of a comic. There's some things where it would matter if you're like in a regular run, a regular series. Suddenly, if this was Wolverine that comes out,
number 77.
right? And then all of a sudden, everybody's dead or whatever, then start worrying when it is Wolverine Revenge with Greg Capullo, Jonathan Hickman coming in and telling a crazy, wacky story. Don't worry about it. Just end up playing
it. Just enjoy it.
At the end, if somehow if it's a wacky way to tie into continuity, he'll tell us by the end, and then we can deal with it then. In the meantime, I'm just having fun with it, and I'm liking the art where you do see at the beginning of this that Nick Fury did not die, that we thought it was
an LMD.
It was an LMD. So you end up having a life model decoy, and he says it was his last one. And again, some people will shake their head and say that's pretty much a MacGuffin deal, but it always is. That's kind of the fun of it.
I mean, we should have known that because it always is with him.
And then you end up
same
having
with Maria Hill or whoever
all
else.
these dead. Yeah, exactly. But again, then somebody's like, I think this is continuity. Cap and Bucky are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's continuity, then I don't know what DC's doing. And again, if it is, they're going to tie it around some way or whatever, but don't worry about that at the point. Gabe's over there trying to do like freaking Gabe mathematics.
Yeah, leave that for the X-Men podcast.
Yeah,
Don't go
seriously.
Into it.
You ended up giving, you gave that Predator book a 9 out of 10. Just go with it. But yeah, you end up where Nick Fury's like, things happen. I always die. We failed. Everything's wrong. What are you going to do? He basically's like, I'm out of here. I'm just going to go. And Wolverine wants revenge. So we get the whole revenge deal. And hey, what are you going to do? And he's going to go and seek out some things. And he ends up going, which is kind of a cool deal. He's in the Dakotas 3 months later, and he's going towards what is like the only thing lit in all of the world, maybe, or at least the U.S., and runs into Danny Moonstar. And she's like, hey, what up? And he's like, yeah, I kind of need to talk to him. And it ends up being Forge, and you kind of guess the idea. And Forge just figured out a way. I mean, electricity's down. Yeah, there's still things like solar and stuff, and that's what Forge did. He ends up using also a Shire, like crazy, what is it, a power source type deal. But I'm fine with that. And the visuals are great. You have these huge, bears and
that big crater and a ship he flies on. The Jeep looks cool.
Yeah, everything looks pretty cool. And you go, and it's pretty quick to the point. You end up having Forge saying, okay, we're going to do this. But they go to the crater. You don't realize it at first, but yeah, it's the crater where Magneto ended up, touchdown. This is ground zero.
Final resting place.
And they dig up his thing. And I think this is a kind of a clever kind of deal also to show that indeed Magneto's dead. I mean, if you thought maybe he wasn't, they dig him up and he's a skeleton. And you end up having Wolverine, you end up having Logan get the helmet. But he's got a plan. The thing is, I wish by the end, I would have kept that helmet on. I don't know why he takes it off. It looks pretty cool. But you end up having Forge kind of work through it, work the way. And this is to keep Mastermind out of his brain.
Yeah, the mind control.
The mind control of it. So that's the big deal. And even at the first issue, we were trying to figure out if maybe Mastermind was one of the guys, but he is indeed. He is the big guy. He seems to be the guy who kind of got them together, and that's who Wolverine is going to go after first. So he gets the Magneto helmet, and it's kind of a cool play. He shows up in this village where Mastermind has already taken over. And it's really, when you have Greg Capullo art, you get the eyes are the things that I always end up seeing. And yeah, it's super sus. He goes in, everybody's just standing around.
Drooling.
Drooling. And then when you end up going in to see Mastermind, he's now drooling because he has all the ladies there rubbing his feet.
Well, I was going to say ladies, and then the girl on the right's a little young. I don't know what's going on there.
That's true. Well, he's sus.
Super sus.
she's just feeding him. She's like a waiter, right? That's what's happening. She's feeding him grapes.
But I do like how Wolverine walks in with the robe and you don't really know it's him, and he comes in. Pretty cool.
And yeah, you have Mastermind's like, oh, who do I have a pleasure? And he can't read the mind. He's trying to. And that's where Wolverine, basically reveals, look at me. And I do like when you have the Mastermind eyes. It looks very classic. Like that looks hypnotic. Like there's another part where you end up where they actually then read the severed brain of Mastermind and you get kind of the classic, almost like the heads that you would have on the cover when they would show all the team members on the front cover in the
floating heads.
Yeah, the floating heads that I like. And in this, you end up having Mastermind trying to control Magneto. He rips off this robe and says, yeah, you ain't getting nothing in here, and then just goes to town. And it's very, he just severs his head.
It's a cool visual with Wolverine
and
wearing the helmet.
And that's why I want him to keep the helmet. I think it looks cool. Really, like in that, have him just get something from each person. And, he gets that crazy get up from Sabretooth later, right? He goes,
he chops this guy's head off. So,
he chops his head off and then walks through the village with it like it's like a bowling ball. And then these people are just like still looking.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, they seem to be like a little bit aghast by it, but I think they should be a little happy. And then you realize what they're doing is taking it to Forge, and now he's going to dig through the brain.
Disgusting.
Up and get the memories. That's where you get the floating heads. I thought it was pretty cool. And I like where they're like, okay, Colossus, he kind of left here. Omega Red, yeah, he's probably where he usually would be. Deadpool, who the hell cares? He's all over the place. That's Sabretooth. There's Sabretooth. And that's where Logan wants to go first and says, I have some grudges here with all of them, but I'll go to the oldest one, and he's going to go after Sabretooth, which actually I think is a cool little thing that I thought Sabretooth would be last, just because he's Sabretooth. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a cool play. And he ends up, Sabretooth just at this point just seems like he kind of just wants to,
he's out in the middle of the desert eating
and eat. Yeah,
he's just that he caught, wearing his full outfit too, which I thought was weird.
That's what I'm saying. Wolverine has to get that outfit, though it wouldn't fit him. But in the meantime, as he's leaving, he says to Forge, and it kept being like, oh, and make me this one other thing. This gets a little hokey because Wolverine shows up in this cool motorbike. I
like that motorcycle.
It looks cool. It looks like a Tron light cycle is what it looks like, kind of. But he shows up with it, and you do see that the headlight is shining right on Sabretooth, right?
Right on his crotch.
Right on his crotch. That crotch ain't healing. And that crotch has like a lot of stuff going
funny
on.
If that's what he slashed first.
Exactly. I think that's what happened to Tommy Lee. You end up where they're there, and they start trash talking, and it's good. Hickman gets it. You end up having Sabretooth say, like, you keep wanting to fight me. I always just kill you and take you down. You can't beat me, little man. All that. And the thing is that Wolverine kind of has like this ace in his pocket here that he knows what's happening, but they go to town. And Sabretooth is kind of ripping Wolverine apart, but Wolverine just knows he just has to get a couple shots in. Mm-hmm. And when he does get him in the gut finally, and look at the mask. Wolverine has claw marks in it. Like he is destroyed, but he's healing. And when he ends up gutting Sabretooth, something's wrong. I'm not. I don't know who would ever think that motorcycle ended up having a special headlight that when shined on somebody who has a healing factor, it takes their healing factor supposedly forever. Because Wolverine says,
Forge
I'm going to come back for
up.
years. That's crazy, right?
Forge always does the anti-mutant device.
Yeah,
I
would have thought that this would have been something that might last for an hour or two.
Yeah, like
but
an hour.
To be permanent, because he says, I might just do what you would do. And I'll come back every year and take a little more peace. And I'm like, he might still be able to move. You better get his legs first then, Wolverine. But Sabretooth's freaking out. He's like, and then actually gets so mad and says, I don't need a healing factor to kill you. You suck. I'm going to take you down. And they just start fighting again. And then you get pretty much Wolverine just gut him again, it looks like. And then you have to be continued. I would assume this is where, he takes out Sabretooth. It looks like he's going for Colossus next. And one of the plays will be throughout this, I think, is that Wolverine will take a lot of damage before he ends up defeating whatever person he's going after, maybe with the help of Forge. I hope that you just don't go back to Forge every time.
It might be somebody different each time.
But it seems like it's him thinking things through and going with a plan, and that's kind of cool. I like this issue. I thought it was pretty good. It almost plays out how I like the Wolverine Deep Cut by Chris Claremont, that it is just a fight but I don't mind seeing the fight, and I think that Greg Capullo's art's really good.
Yeah, when a fight is drawn this well and choreographed this well, then you can't not
I'll tell
like
you,
it.
The one thing that takes my score down, the only one thing is we've seen Wolverine and Sabretooth fight like 1 trillion times. Like, I'm not a huge X-Men fan. I've seen it 1 trillion times. We even have it right now, I said, in the whole Deep Cut deal by Claremont. So I'm looking forward to some of these other fights like Colossus and Deadpool and stuff.
I agree with you, but I also think it's an interesting decision to keep it 2 issues to defeat him rather than 1. Maybe there'll be something interesting he has.
Yeah, unless he's just like walking away. Hopefully there is something that goes on. I actually, when he showed up and the way Sabretooth was, I actually thought, and even Sabretooth almost playing out like, because Wolverine says, are you surprised I'm alive? And he's like, no. You have a healing factor like me. I mean, they put a bomb in me and I survived. I thought that somehow they were going to team up. I thought that Sabretooth was going to say, listen, I'm in the desert here because those people used me. I ended up this or that. Maybe we can, and then maybe save to the end when they defeat everybody else, then they fight. But no, it was just a fight.
No, he's got revenge on the brain.
It looks great, though. But what would you give it?
Yeah, I think I give the last one a 9. I'll give this one an 8.5. I mean, it's just
I think I'll go a little lower. I think I'm going to go 8 just because of the Sabretooth deal. But I still like it. I still think that and it looks great. I think it looks really, really
it's
good.
My book of the week so far. I don't know what that means, but
I'm telling you, sus Gabe, he's screwing us. But yeah, I'll go. It's one of my favorites so far of what I've read. I haven't read that much.
One saving grace is that we get to read it in all its glory, though.
That is true because the review copies, and actually I can use my normal comic reader as well.
Yeah, some benefits.
I always bitch and moan because when they get the review copies, they send out PDFs. They're very low res. So we've even mentioned before that this might look better when we get to the deal and stuff. So yeah, that's better.
I think they do a red band for these, or at least they did for the first one, is worth checking out too. It's got a couple extra pages.
And with that, again, if Marvel, this seemed like more Gabe. DC, when they dropped this from the review copies, that seemed like vindictive. They actually even said to me, I guess you're not going to be able to do your stuff anymore. Like, they wanted to really throw salt on the wound, which then I said, what the hell are you talking about? But I still end up thinking while we're doing this and whatever, when these books suck, we'll be here to tell you they suck. But if they're good, we'll tell you they're good. But still, if Marvel thinks that this is anything that will stop us or whatnot, they're just full of it. They're full of it, and they just give the review copies to just shills and sus assholes. Except Sus Gabe. He ended up ruining it. But with all that, that is it. I'm not even going to have a deal at the end. We'll see what comes out next week.
Yeah, we don't even know. We'll get back into rhythm once we know.
We have no idea what we'll be able to do and whatnot. We'll see the lay of the land, and then we'll get back to that. But that is it. I have a little song about Gabe as we go. But that is it. Thanks for joining me, Matt. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you all later.
He gets up early. He says good morning. He never cuts anyone any slack. He reads his comics, he writes his reviews. Stephanie Phillips says that he's a hack, but she doesn't see his sensitive soul. He never lets it shine, but I don't think it'll ever get old. Say he gave Predator 1 a 9. Sus Gabe, don't cause a fuss, Gabe. Everything will work out fine. Sus Gabe, don't ever trust Gabe. Did I tell you he gave Predator 1 a 9?